everyone. We're back. As you know, we have been having these Meet the FIlmmakers sessions every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. If you are a subscriber to our channel, you will know, you will already have been informed. Please, if you are not a subscriber, do subscribe, because as the year unfolds, we're going to have more talks. We're going to have conversations with industry people. We're going to do some workshops. Right now, we are focusing on the filmmakers that are in the 9th annual edition of the Socially Relevant Film Festival, New York. We have 64 films from 39 countries this year, and still growing. And they come in different shapes and sizes. We have shorts, documentary and narrative. We have documentaries that are of normal documentary length, whether it's 52 minutes or even longer. And we have script writing, a script writing competition, as well as narrative features. With the categories of the films, they can be about different topics. We do not decide the themes beforehand, as I had said previously, but as different audiences come on, I must repeat again, we classify the films that we select, the best of the crop, into the themes that emerge, but we don't pre-decide what the themes are. We don't say, okay, let's make this year's festival on such and such a theme, but we let the filmmakers themselves tell us their stories. So basically, that's how it is approached. The Socially Relevant Film Festival, I had the idea of founding it 9 years ago because I was getting tired of seeing violence on screen and off. When I say on screen, if a film is dwelling upon violence or there's a lot of gratuitous violence in it, you are free not to go and see it. And a lot of people choose not to. I'm not the only one who hates violence on screen or gratuitous violence. But sometimes we're dealing with film posters or advertising that is right there in your face, and you cannot run away from it. You cannot escape because it's on a bus, it's on a billboard, it's in public places. And that's infringing your private space. And it's bringing aggression and violence to you in your daily existence. So that was what triggered in me the idea of wanting to bring films that deal with social issues and tell human interest stories. This year, we have a huge selection of different themes that come up. And when I go back and introduce you the filmmakers now, we're going to see what a diverse group we have with such diverse themes. So without further ado, before I forget, let me tell you, please, if you have questions or comments, put them in the comments section. We already have people here. We have a friend who's saying good afternoon from Chicago, I guess, because it's 12:30 and here it's past 1:30. And it's Barbara Camp, a friend of one of the filmmakers, or two of the filmmakers probably. And it's wonderful to see the echo when friends come on and ask questions and put them in the comments. We will repeat them. Your questions could be addressed to one filmmaker, to everybody, or to myself about the festival, as you please. So without further ado, let me bring on our wonderful filmmakers, and we'll take a quick turn and everybody will introduce themselves and their film briefly. And then in the second round, we're gonna go more in depth into each film. So I guess David and Adria, you're the first ones left going clockwise.
All right. Well, hi. Thanks so much for having us. I'm David Tarleton, and this is Adria Dawn.
We are Tarleton Dawn Productions. We made Gray Area. I wrote it and co-directed with David, and we co-produced.
Yes. And the film, sort of the short version of the film, is the film is exploring the gray area of drinking, mom wine culture, addiction,
Childhood trauma. Yep, and that's sort of it in a quick nutshell.
That's the short version.
Yes, that's great. We'll come back to you as soon as we are done with all the introductions. So we have next Mark.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Vonderheide, and I'm one of the producers of Pieces of Us, which I produced with director Cheryl Allison, who has 2 other films that were done prior, which is how I came to be associated with her. The film is a documentary feature. It's about 5 different people, very different people, gay, straight, transgender, who all had their lives altered by hate crime in one way or another. And by speaking out about it publicly, they changed their lives, and unbeknownst to them, they changed a lot of other lives. It includes Victoria Cruz, who was one of the transgender women of color at Stonewall in 1969, and also Prince Manvendra, who came out on Oprah's show in 2008 of India, the only openly gay prince in the world. And it culminates at World Pride in 2019 in New York City.
Yeah, it's cool. Okay, next we have Andrew.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Andrew Romulus. I am the director of 3 Little Birds, and the film follows 3 men growing up, living in and staying in America as they try to keep their cultural values intact over the course of many years.
That's cool. Great. And next we have Giulia.
Hello, everybody. I'm presenting a short movie, feature film about what I would call a women issue, but it's a humanity issue, which is denatality. And it's all set in a place where denatality is making one town disappear.
Yes, very, very interesting topic. There was a film, actually, it's so funny because some of these topics keep coming back. There was a topic about the same issue, but it was a number of women who were talking about the pressures of society and trying to make them get married, and you have to get married. How come you still don't have a boyfriend? You still don't have a fiancé? And there was about that, and the fact that they need to get married, they need to have children, because that's how it should be. And yours is kind of the same, but focusing much more on the birth issue and natality issue. And Pieces of Us is very, very interesting. A few years ago, we had Stonewall with a T, a very, very interesting film, which was about the transgender element in the LGBTQ scene, and also the personal hate crimes, which I will also touch upon as we go on. Then we have Helen. We changed positions because Anji came out and came back in. So we go to Helen first. And also, if you want to tell us where you are joining in from, let's.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Good evening, everybody from Berlin. It's 7:30 now here, and I'm very excited to be here, to invited to this festival. I've done the short film Hear Us Sweet Freedom, and it's based on 3 music pieces, 3 classical music pieces from 3 epochs. And yeah, it's a kind of musical, but not really. So it's experimental but narrative film. We are in the future. Art and culture has died out because of the pandemic. And there are 3 women symbolizing creativity, solidarity, and finance. And they are praying to the gods of culture and art, and trying to resurrect art and culture.
Yeah, a very timely topic, because with COVID and the lockdown, a lot of the arts, especially the performing arts and the in-person performances, were stopped, and everybody started wondering what is going to happen next. Of course, expression didn't stop, artistic creation didn't stop, because artists and filmmakers and performers found other ways of expressing themselves. So let's have Anji introduce her film and herself.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be here with all the other filmmakers. My film's called Nomad Meets the City. I'm the director and one of the producers. And the broad theme is urbanization and migration. It's set in Mongolia. But really, we don't analyze those topics. We just follow one family, and in particular, the father of the family who moves to the capital city of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, for work and also for his children's education. His daughter is applying to colleges abroad. And you just kind of follow the story of this family over the course of a year.
Yeah, very interesting topic again, because it talks about movements of populations and how urbanization happens, how it affects people's personal relationships, because in the story, we don't want to do a spoiler here, but it also the urbanization process and how it plays a role in the relationship of the couple. So that's also a very important element. Wow, this is great. We have such a plethora of topics to explore. And my first question usually is, and then we'll take turns again, and later on, you get to a point where you can jump in and say something if you feel. But for now, let's keep the order again and talk about how the idea of this film came about. What triggered it in you? Was it something dormant for years that you've been thinking about? Is it a personal story, or is it a moment, something happened and it was a voila, and it was a discovery moment? So whatever it is, please share it with us.
Okay, well, we're based in Oak Park, Illinois, just right next to Chicago, and we were approached by a local Oak Park family, the Kittleys, Kelly Kittley and Ryan Kittley. And Kelly wrote a book called Myself, which was all about her journey to sobriety and dealing with past family traumas and juggling raising 4 kids and being a full-time therapist and a motivational speaker. So when I read her book, during the pandemic, when drinking is still at an all-time high, the book really shook me in a way, and we had to make it.
It's a really beautiful memoir, and just her bravery and sort of revealing herself in her own sort of story felt to us an important story to tackle.
And very relatable, having family, using things to help you get through it. And then really just taking a mirror and looking at yourself and getting really real with yourself and learning how to be your best self was important to us.
Like the idea of mom wine culture is a whole thing now, right? Like, the kids are too difficult, so it's wine time or whatever. And the ways that our culture in many ways just isn't reflecting on what that is and what it means.
Yeah, I think when you think of the word alcoholic, we're not talking about somebody that's homeless on the street, that's lost their job.
Right.
This story centers around a very successful woman, and we wanted to share her triumph in getting to where she is now.
It was actually really exciting working with both Kelly and Ryan on the project. I mean, so Kelly not only wrote this memoir, she also was a producer on the project and was our COVID supervisor.
Yeah, and her husband was a producer as well as an actor.
And yeah, he was one of the leads in the
Talk about multitasking. It's interesting because we have a section this year in the festival under lockdown, and Helen's film is in that section. It is about films that were made either inspired from the situations they were put in during lockdown, or that dealt with particular situations. There is one film called Desperation, and it's about a guy who is alcoholic, actually, and in the loneliness of his lockdown, he keeps wanting to go to the glass, to the bottle, and then he has to call his buddy, the buddy that's supposed to be supervising him so that he doesn't fall into his habit. In your case, it's not really alcoholism as such, but it's the wine mom, which is a very important phenomenon as well, because it might start like that, but it might go further or not go further. So, it's situations where it's important to deal with, because under the pressure, we say, oh, I need a drink.
Right. Yeah, it's a very common.
Right. Mark, how did your project come about, and how did it start?
Well, it's interesting because this is my first documentary that I became involved with, and so it really came about because of friends of mine that I was hearing their stories. Gypsta and Mikkel are two of the people in the film who are friends of mine for years, and they both were victims of a hate crime assault. And as I heard them talk about it, I empathized with it as a gay man. I came out late. I came out when I was 32, so I lived really two lives so far in my life. One as a secret and one as a true, version of myself. And so I related to the shame that they were describing in realizing that when you're a victim of a hate crime, 4 out of 5 people who are victims don't even talk about it, because then they have to relive it over and over and have that shame kind of triggered over and over again. And so I was listening to them and I started talking to them about it. And suddenly it became a bigger and bigger story. Mikkel became friends with Prince Manbendra of India and had traveled there to work with him with the gay population in India, who has even more history of shame and religious challenges, let's say. And then my good friend Sue Senna, who was the one I came out to, she's a straight woman who was a friend of mine. I came out to her, and that changed my life. And Mikkel and Sue got together and formed an organization called Swish at the time, which was originally stood for Straight Women in Support of Homosexuals. But we've changed that because of the changing culture. We don't want to call that out. It's more inclusive. But what she wanted to see was a straight ally advocating for gay people and their rights, because she saw me suffer. Then we realized that Victoria Cruz was Mikkel's crisis counselor at the Anti-Violence Project in New York.
Wow.
And suddenly I was like, this story just keeps going and has more and more legs. Somebody should make a movie about this.
Yes.
And I looked around and I was like, I think it's me. And so it really was just we decided that we had to do it. We found Cheryl Allison, who had directed 2 films, a short narrative film called Hiding in Daylight about a post-gay purge world where 2 gay couples marry each other's spouses in order to pretend to exist in this new world. And then a documentary called Shatter the Silence about the Me Too movement in Texas. So she had this perfect, and being an out and proud lesbian, she was the perfect voice to tell these stories. And so we brought her on, and she had known Mikkel when they were both performers 20 years ago. So even the behind the scenes aspect, it just kept growing. And we said, we're just going to hold hands and make this movie.
That's amazing how a story comes and grabs you by the leg and says, come here, make my story, bring me to life. And then you have no choice. You've like been caught at the leg and at the throat.
100%.
Well, we have a couple of comments here, which I would like to acknowledge. Roberta Camp, earlier when I introduced from Chicago, and she corrected us and says, I'm the actor in the film. And I'm like, yay, we have to salute Roberta here, because it's a narrative as opposed to Mark's documentary. And you can't have a narrative without an actor. And Nicole, our very good friend Nicole Ansari, who's one of the filmmakers in this edition and has a film called Messy, which we had a chat with already, but we're going to have more chats with the filmmakers as the date gets closer. Hi, Nicole, it's great to see you. So let's continue our journey and go to Andrew and tell us how the idea of the little bird, 3 little birds, came to you.
Honestly, I still don't know how. When I was originally thinking about the idea, it was right when the pandemic hit and my college closed. So we were all at home, just like still trying to figure out what was going on. And also at that point, I was in the film division of my school, and my teacher announced that it was going to be the last time that we'll be having films as a thesis. So basically, she was more or less saying that, like, we really want this to be good, but also considering everything that's going on, it's okay if it's not your best work, because right now we're still all struggling. And the original idea for the film was actually me documenting the Jamaican American population in New York City, because that's where I'm from, and how large it is in New York City. I mean, in comparison to you know, the ones like Italians and Hispanics and Asians as well. Like Jamaica, there's a lot of immigrants that came here from Jamaica to New York City, and that's what I originally was going to document. And thankfully, I had a lot of people that I knew that were either from Jamaica or came here, and they, you know, I thought that I'd be able to speak to them, but because the pandemic was so new and so fresh in everybody's minds, like they weren't like completely available or ready to interact with me, because we all didn't know what was going on and how this, you know, COVID thing works. So understandable. So I decided to tone it down a bit and look towards my family, because at the very least I knew that they would I would know for a fact if they weren't sick or not, like they'll be able to tell me like firsthand. And at that point I decided to tone it down a little bit more and just focus on culture as a whole and how it can either change or stay the same depending on what generation you come from, and what time did you actually come to America. Because when you come to America from another place, it's just a complete shock as in terms of like how much can be done here and how much cannot be done here depending on what time that you came here. So that's in a very long way, that's how I came up with the idea.
And a lot of times people who are not in America but are coming from different places before coming here have a completely different image of America, and then they can come and some things might correspond, most don't, basically. So it's a huge shock, like you're saying. So basically, let's take a quick round and see where everybody is calling from. I know Adria and David are in Chicago, and Mark, where are you right now?
I'm in Los Angeles.
You're in LA, and Andrew? You're in
New York City.
New York. Yeah, the only one who's, I'm also in New York. And Giulia, where are you right now?
I'm in Italy, in Bologna, to be precise, in the north of Italy.
Which city?
It's called Bologna, and it's near Florence. So
I know Bologna very well.
It's a beautiful, beautiful city.
I love Bologna. It's the tours and everything, you know, and the museum and, you know, the big square. I've been a few times for the Cinematheque.
Oh, great! Yes, great. You have a great cinematheque. Yes, with restoration of movies also. Quite important.
Yes. And Helen, you said already you're in Berlin, and Anji.
I'm in DC now. I was in Mongolia and China for a long time, and I came back just before the pandemic to DC.
Yeah, that's so cool. Everybody's tuning in from somewhere. Well, we have some more comments. Megan McDonough is saying hello, everyone from Chicago. And Roberta is very active with us, which is wonderful, and saying they are all important topics. Thank you all for making these films. And on that note, I want to take my turn and thank the filmmakers, because there are no film festivals without filmmakers. What about that? It's a huge discovery I made just now. And I always keep repeating that there are three major ingredients for a good film festival to happen. First one is filmmakers, good films, good stories. The second one is a festival team, because this is not a one-person show. You know, we have 64 films from 39 countries. There is no way, even if I work 24/7, which I pretty much do, but even so, it's not possible to do it without the support of a great team and people who believe in the same vision, in the same missions that we are undertaking which is shining the spotlight on socially relevant films and filmmakers. And the third is another very important ingredient. It's our partners and sponsors, who I cannot thank enough, because without them, we would not have been able to sustain ourselves for this long and be still alive 9 years on. So let's go to Giulia and see about her film and how the idea came about. It's a very, very important topic. And if a whole village is wiped out, then it makes you stop and think.
Yeah, quite. Well, Nora, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And, you know, you're running a very special festival. So I think we are all thankful to you as well. So about my short movie. Well, as I said, I live in Italy. And Italy is living through a difficult time in the subject of demographic issues. And we have a denatality problem. There are a lot of childless women in Italy. And a few years ago, the government decided to make a sort of campaign, a sort of propaganda, to push women into making families, into making babies, essentially. So I was a woman, a target of that propaganda, because I was a woman in her 30s, so I was childless, totally the target. And I felt a little bit, you know, not violated, not so much, not so strong, but still disturbed by this, because the propaganda used to have a lot of, you know, advices, what to do to get pregnant, how to run a healthy life, something that you wouldn't address to men or to other people or other women of other ages. So I felt okay. And, you know, this is personal on one side, because when you're in your 30s and you're starting to think about having babies or not having babies, there are a lot of issues, a lot of problems you have to face. Not only age, but also, you know, health issues, love issues, sexual issues. There are lots of, problems. So the last thing you want is the government to inquire in what the problems are. And so, on the other hand, there was also political reason to take this problem seriously, which is the natality is a problem also if you keep your borders closed. I mean, in Italy, you have a problem of immigration of policy of immigration, which are not good policies. So it was really simple for the government to address the natality to Italian women. So I just thought about, okay, but what would happen if the government would force, in a way, women to have children, or at least make draconian measures to have more babies in the country? And this is why the short movie came.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it parallels with what's happening here, where abortion is outlawed. I mean, not in New York, of course, but in the United States, with some states that are taking this measure. And it's like interfering with women's freedom of choice in many, many ways because of certain other functions that we are supposed to fulfill. And who are we trying to please in fulfilling those other functions? It's the men who put out these laws. I don't know if there are women who would have signed under those laws and said, okay, let's address the women and ask them to have children and impose upon them. Or maybe they give incentives and they say, okay, we'll pay you X number of euros a month if you have a child or whatever, you know. It's like, yes, it's fine for the government to think in terms of demographics, but what about the person? What about the personal choice? So it raises all these important female-oriented or feminist issues. Very, very interesting. And Helen, how did your idea come about? You kind of told us a little bit about it, but maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Yes. Yeah, actually, you said that some ideas just have to come out and just have to be filmed. And And that's what exactly has happened to me, because in fact I'm a singer and an actress. I mean, before I worked more as an actress, but in the last years more than as a singer. And I have found in the lockdown, because before I did much choir work, and this all stopped since the lockdown. And in the lockdown, I found it with a soprano and an organist, both female also. Like we founded a small ensemble, music ensemble. And then actually it was a piece from Handel, from Georg Friedrich Handel, Come Ever Smiling Liberty. And I found this duet and it was strange, but I just had the idea to change the text, the German text, according to the pandemic, and just actually for fun. and then it developed, and in the end, I wrote the story. I wrote a choir arrangement for this piece. I found another piece from Schütz, and so it somehow grew up to something I couldn't stop anymore, you know.
Yeah.
And in fact, I had actually in mind that I would look for a director, and I had a director, a professional director for films, and he wanted to do this, but then he had too much to do with his children in the home office and homeschooling and everything. And even when the lockdown has finished, it was still so difficult for everybody. And and then it came that I had to do it by myself, you know.
This necessity is the mother of invention, as they say. Yes. So but it's amazing because the lockdown, like I was saying earlier, has been productive for some people. Personally, I can share my own story. I was supposed to be doing a play, which was monologues of migrant women. Migrant woman. Io donna immigrata. It's an Italian play written by Valentina Acava Macca, and I translated it into English. And it was all exciting, 3 monologues of 3 migrant women telling about their lives. And then the lockdown happened, and I felt, wait a minute, this is very, it lends itself very easily to a Zoom production, which we did on a Zoom production. I ended up casting 5 actresses instead of 3 because there were doubles. 2 of them were so good, I couldn't decide which one. So I felt, okay, one will play one night, the other night. And then ended up editing the whole thing together, including all the actresses, by cutting it so that one says something, the other responds as though, instead of saying the same thing. And it ended up being a 36-minute short film, which is now touring the film festivals. And it even won me an award as Best Female Director of a Short in the Toronto Independent Film Festival. Which means like we need to make use of whatever possibilities and opportunities are given to us at any given moment. And of course, it's not easy when you are a live performer and you need an audience. You need to stand up in front of an audience to do what you do. But you see, the result is a film that is now traveling around. Yeah.
Yes, and you know, it was I think this saved us, me and many other people also who took part, because of course there's the danger to fall in depressions, and it kept me alive. And of course I had to find the the
balance.
Yeah, it was not always easy to shoot the film, because we also had a singing in Berlin for 1 month. Singing was completely forbidden. And I had organized the choir to record the choir in this time, and I've done it. I mean, it was really, really difficult. But sometimes you have to do things because it's not. You have to go for it.
Yeah. And Anji, how about your feelings about this? What we're talking about?
Well, I really resonate with what like pretty much all of you have said, that just feeling called to tell the story or make the film. And this film, for me, it was my first film. I was doing video editing and had some skills, but I'd never made a film before. So, but
you were living in Mongolia at the time?
I wasn't. So I was in, but I did for some background. I grew up in Taiwan and I had worked in China. So Asia was not foreign to me, but I had never been to Mongolia. And at the time I was doing a master's degree in urban planning. And when I was graduating, I realized halfway through the program, I did not want to be an urban planner. So that was good to figure out in grad school. But as I was graduating, I had this idea to make this film. I had a good friend who had done research on urban planning policies in Ulaanbaatar, and because there is a huge urbanization and migration wave happening in Mongolia due to climate change and other reasons. So to me, the contrast between coming from, if you can imagine, just a wide open steppe with one yurt, or ger as it's called in Mongolia, and that's it, this wide open space and a already subsistence lifestyle, and then moving into an urban setting. For me, that contrast was so fascinating, and I just felt like I wanted to see it and I wanted to document it. And as soon as I had the idea, it was a done deal. There was no, it was just gonna happen. And so I self-funded it I didn't even know where I would get the money from, but then I realized that when I had been working before grad school, I'd put some money away in the retirement funds, and took all that money out, went to Mongolia, and was just able to build some contacts and eventually find this family that we ended up filming with. So that's kind of the origin story of it, and ended up living there for about 3 years. And most of our team is Mongolian, the other producers and cinematographer and the composer, and it did become quite a localized production in the end. And yeah, that's the origin story.
It's very interesting to hear how films come about, because if there are out there aspiring filmmakers or experienced filmmakers who are looking for the next project, or thinking, I would love to make a movie one day, but I don't know where to start, what to do, just listening to these stories and how each one comes about completely in different conditions, or sometimes unexpectedly, sometimes it's a necessity, sometimes it's a story that's been kind of bubbling inside you and waiting to be let out. And it's like different situations. So the one thing we can say to young students or filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers out there, is that don't think too much. Just grab your camera and run and start filming. And now with all these incredible cameras, like, we have a filmmaker who has a film in the selection, My Young Gang Diary, who she completely filmed on iPhone. And it's possible. Nowadays, everything is at our fingertips. So don't think much. Don't wait until all the money is together. Just go for it. And be sure that if it's good, if your story is good, there will be a platform at the Socially Relevant Film Festival. So what else can we ask for? So I have a comment here from Michael Place, who says, thank you all for sharing your time. It makes watching your films all the more interesting and personal. Like, that's why we are doing these Meet the Filmmakers, because it's always interesting to know who is behind a film. And on this, let me, for our audience, just put together, show the banner where they can get the tickets, because we're talking about all these wonderful films. The films screen from March 16 until March 20th in person, starting at the Lincoln Center, opening on Tuesday, March 16, and then they go online. They go in person to the Cinema Village over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the program, almost all films, with the exception of a few that do not have the online licensing. So they all migrate to our online platform and screen from the 20th until the 27th. So technically, somebody who is not in New York has access to almost all the films that are in the offering, and all that information is on our website. So after this commercial break, let's go back to where we were and talk about whatever you feel like saying. How did you learn about the festival? Who told you about it? Or maybe you read it somewhere, or you found it on Film Freeway, or you knew about it. What happened? How did you come our way is what I would like to know. I'm not being able to get rid of my tickets. There you go.
Well, for us, this is our third time as part of the festival.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having back.
Yeah, we make a kids series as well for social change, and we screened.
The first one.
The first one
was in the first festival.
I think so. And then we screened in 2019 our movie Unsafe about gun violence in schools,
which won a couple of awards, and now we are back. So
now we are back.
We are big fans of the festival.
Yeah, we well. Importantly, I think I would just want to tell everybody the films that we are a part of. I'm so excited to watch these because the content that we end up with is so high production value, great storytelling, great messages. So I'm just really excited to see the rest of your films.
I'll chime in if we're going out of order. Just that I found it on Film Freeway, but what I love, Nora, about the focus of the festival is, like you said, the nonviolent kind of positive lens. Because that was something that was really important to me with my film. I didn't want to take a sort of top-down pitying view of the character, and I didn't want to focus on what was negative in his life. I wanted to, or in everybody in their lives, all the people in the film. I just wanted to tell the story through their eyes. And I found that just a lot of stories on Mongolia tended to focus on very dark issues, and it's very limbic system based. That's kind of what humans, we have that kind of fear response to that, and that sells tickets. And that was just not what I wanted to do with the film. I wanted to really respect the character and the family.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point that you are bringing up, because when we are doing the programming of the films, we are always very aware that the films should not have a condescending view of the different cultures about which they are talking, or indigenous people, and so on and so forth. We have a huge selection of indigenous people's rights films this year. We have films about the Sahrawis, the Western Sahara people, the Chagossians. We have a film on Artsakh and the Armenians that have been aggressed by Azerbaijan 2 years ago. We have a film about First Nations, the Canadian First Nations. And of course, last but not least, we have Native Americans. And it's very important to tell these stories, not from a tokenist point of view, not from a condescending point of view, or like a wow factor. Wow, look at these people, how they are. No, but actually approach them from the human interest point of view and the universality of the values, how all the values, all the different cultures are interrelated. And the more we understand and know about different cultures, the less there is violence in the world. So that's a very, very important approach. Anyone else wants to say how they came our way?
I can jump in because that's a good segue into our film. And that's why we're so excited to be part of your festival. With the festival run, we knew that we had a film that would likely get into the LGBTQ festival circuit, but we felt that it was really important that we also be in mainstream festivals, because you can preach to the choir, but the people who really need to see this film are people who don't understand the gay culture or transgender culture, the straight community. And one of the people who I didn't mention earlier, Leah Pierce, is a mother whose 9-year-old son committed suicide after going to school and coming out to his classmates and being bullied. And Mikkel forms a friendship with her, and that's how she became part of the film. And that story is just so shocking and sad and unnecessary, right? I mean, it's heartbreaking to know that that was the only option that he felt he had. And his mother became a staunch ally for gay rights, simply because she felt compelled to protect her son and his legacy. And so we respect that in the film, of course. Her story is a cautionary tale to parents who don't know how to relate to a gay son or daughter. And the only way you can create conversation and the division, remove that division and create unity, is understanding that we're all searching for love, and love will always triumph over hate when given the opportunity. Sometimes not immediately, sometimes it takes time. So we really wanted to illuminate that there is a universal feeling of how people process trauma and how they overcome it. And all the people in the film chose to be public about their trauma. And they were able to, and that's how their stories became connected. And that's how the narrative of the film continues, to show how they didn't even realize how they were changing other people's lives because they had the courage to speak about it. And anyone who's experienced trauma, it doesn't specifically have to be an LGBTQ person. Yeah. We're all experiencing trauma for the last 2 years, quite honestly, and it's subversive. And if you don't get it out of you and talk about it and share your experience and learn and have empathy and compassion, it stays inside you, and that can turn to anger. So we're very excited to have this platform to allow people to understand what can happen when hate wins.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing that point up, because that's something we really pride ourselves about. Is like, there are lots of different film festivals who focus on one particular issue. There is, for example, the LGBTQ festivals, as you mentioned. There are Real Abilities Film Festival, who we have partnered with in the past, who talk about disability. Also, there is the Real Recovery Film Festival, which talks about alcoholism and recovering alcoholics and all that. And however, each one of these festivals focus on one particular theme. And if somebody is not familiar with that theme, or on the worse side of the spectrum is adverse to that theme, is obviously not going to go see these movies. And it will be keeping on preaching to the choir, and the same people who know these films and know these issues are going to be the ones who go to see them. That's why in our case, we don't focus on any particular issues and offer the spectrum of everything. And when we are selecting the films, we don't pre-decide. We don't say, oh, let's make this year's festival about such and such and so and so. The films tell the stories. So it's very important to get to people who don't know anything about these matters, whatever they might be. I personally being the first one, I learned so much, and I'm sure anybody who comes to the festival discovers things. All of these films have huge, very deep educational values because they are all dealing with topics. Did you know, like, for example, that there is something like depopulation or no, denatality, such thing in Italy? Or what about the harm done to LGBTQ people who are coming out and expressing their real identities or belonging and all that, and the aggression and the alcoholism and urbanized? All of these themes are themes that we might have some idea about, but looking at the films, believe me, for me, it's a huge learning curve. I have learned so much. I could write a PhD on the films that I have watched and selected over the 9 years that we've been doing this. And of course, I don't do the selection on my own, needless to say. When you receive over 5 or close to 500 films, there's no way I can sit down and watch 500 films. So a selection committee goes and watches and decides yes, no, maybe. And then out of the no's could be because they are dealing with a good subject, but not in a good way, in the sense that the production values aren't there, or maybe they are not quite able to tell the story, or whatever reason. The yeses are the ones that jump at us right away and grab us. Come, show me, those films. And then the other ones are, the maybes are, okay, we know it's good, but it's not in our first choices. And then if we find a hole in the program about a particular theme, then we go to the maybe folder and we find the maybe that would fit right to complete the puzzle. So it's a huge process. And it's not random at all. And it's not random when we decide which film goes in person, which film goes online. And it's like, wow. Yeah. So thank you all very much for being patient throughout this process. Anybody wants to say something about how they found out about the festival, or what to expect from screening with us, or something?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say that I can totally relate to what you said about topic ghettos in festivals. My short movie went very well all around the world, but almost always in festival about women's rights. And since I think that the natality is a human right, a human topic, your festival was really something I was searching for, and I found it on Film Freeway. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. There is another comment. These films are the voices of the people with respect and dignity of their humanity. I am thankful. We are thankful that we have had the privilege of viewing these films and programming them. Some of us, we have to feel proud as well, because we keep hearing about some of the films that got distribution, that went somewhere, did something, and that could not make us happier, because we feel, wow, we found this jewel in the haystack, and now somebody else has noticed it, and here it is. We paved the way, we opened the door somewhere. So that's part of the mission of the festival, to shine the spotlight on films and filmmakers who take it upon themselves to tell socially relevant stories on human beings, real people, real stories. So come next to the final question in our round. It's, what is your next project? Who wants to jump in and talk about their next project?
We'll go. First of all, I just want to say that your title 2 of the festival, Socially Relevant, is perfect. Everybody's voice is relevant, and you made these things for a reason, for the people. So the title alone, I really like that too. Anyway, our next project is, we're going to be making another film in our series Kids Matter, and this one is going to focus on pronouns and exploring gender identity. And we're excited, looking forward to that. We usually make these with middle school kids primarily, some high school kids. And yeah, we're really looking forward to it. It's going to start in April.
I think that's a great topic. And yeah, the pronouns. At some point, everybody was putting in their titles, pronouns, choice pronouns, and so on. And yeah, and then you start asking, is it important to let me know, or not important to let me know? Some people feel it is important. Other people feel everybody should be free to be called what they want, and so on and so forth. So it's a very important topic. We can't wait to see it. Who wants to talk about their next project?
I guess I can go. Well, I am in that weird spot where I just graduated. Well, I say I just graduated. It was last year, but it feels like 5 years now. And I have been like trying to figure out what I could do in terms of like film now. And considering this was like my first documentary, I really liked the idea of how docs work in the sense that like it's just capturing real life in a certain sense of like people letting people tell their own stories instead of you like interfering too much and just letting them go on their own. And I also like narrative too. So I've been thinking about making a documentary about a KFC near my neighborhood that's been empty for about like almost 10 years now. And I want to make a comment on, first of all, how it's been empty for so long, because I feel like with most restaurants or places that get taken down in New York City and everywhere else, like they get replaced immediately. But this place has been empty for so long, and that might be a bad thing, but also could be a good thing, because in neighborhoods like mine that are like predominantly Black, I feel like having a KFC there and then also having a Domino's right next to it and then also having a McDonald's right next to it is also telling more of how society allows restaurants like those fast food restaurants to be so close-knit to communities like ours, and then have like a Subway or some other, I guess, like green plant-based restaurant like so far away that you can't even reach it, that the only option that you have is this fast food junk. So yeah, that's probably the next thing I want to work on.
I think that's a very, very interesting topic because it perpetuates a certain image and certain health issues that keep coming up in communities, and and then they look at the statistics and you see that there is an abundance of diabetes, overweightness, and so on and so forth, and obvious relationship between the fast food and making it easily available and less expensive, and no alternatives. It's an extremely interesting topic. I think you should definitely explore that. Wow, it sounds fascinating. And you see, the thing is that with documentary films, documentary filmmakers, topics are all over the place. We should just keep our eyes open, and then something triggers and I go, oh my God, I wish I could find out about that. And the moment you start thinking about it, more questions are asked. You ask yourself questions, and then more answers come up, and then before you know it, your film is taking shape. So it's really amazing. We wish you all the best with that. Let's see it when it's done. Okay, who else wants to talk about their next project? We still have a couple of minutes.
I can just briefly say, oh, sorry.
No,
just very briefly. I'm waiting for another topic to grab me the way the Nomad Meets the City grabbed me. I've had some topics sort of come along and grab my interest. I had to start taking care of my mom during the filming of Nomad Meets the City. She has dementia, and now it's been like 7 years that I've been taking care of her. And so that's one topic that I've thought about a lot, but it's hard for me to care for her and document her at the same time. So short answer is I'm not sure yet, but staying open to ideas.
Yeah, well, that is a fascinating topic as well. But at the same time, I can understand the pressure, because if you're the caretaker, how do you manage that? And a lot of times situations that we are in, difficult situations, are not the moment to tell the story. They're the moment to feed us with what we want to talk about. And then later, when there is a moment where you can take a step back, that's when to tell the story. But then, you never know. you do whatever feels comfortable. And yes, Giulia, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, but well, I would like also to say to Anji that I've just read something about from Jodie Foster, the actress and director, who made something about her struggling with her mother's dementia. and maybe you could find it interesting to check out, or just for inspiration. So maybe you already knew that, but I wanted to tell you. And about me, I'm in the post-production phase of a documentary about a song called Bella Ciao. I don't know if anybody knows it. Yeah, you know, Nora, thank you. So Bella Ciao is a song from Italian resistance from World War II, but now it's a hit because of a Netflix drama called Money Heist that probably you have seen. So it's interesting how this traditional Italian song is becoming so worldwide well known by people who probably don't know anything about Italian history. So I've been exploring this contrast in this documentary, and it will go out in a couple of months in Italian television broadcasting.
Yeah, that is extremely interesting. Wow, what a amazing discovery. You see, everything is like a subject for a documentary. Like, I was just eating my throat bonbons, you know, maybe I can make a documentary about this. How did it come about? Why do we eat throat bonbons and whatever? You know? So it doesn't mean my documentary will be as interesting as the Bella Ciao one, but you never know. And I really appreciate that you gave Anji a note about that, because this is part of the reason why, unfortunately, we're not doing this in person, in a real in-person situation, in a festival. In the good old days, pre-COVID days, we would all get together in the same room and we would chat and talk and exchange cards and say, oh, I know somebody who could help you with this. But this is great. Also, this is a way of networking for us. And that's why when we first do the festival and we're first writing the pre-selection letters to the filmmakers, we do it as BCC with the emails. But once the selection has been completed, we start writing to everybody in the same email in the to section, because we want everyone to start communicating with each other as filmmakers and already networking and feeling like they are part of the same family. So thank you all. I think we are 3 minutes over our time. Let me just make sure we don't have any more comments that I should read. I think I covered everything, and just make sure that the audience is aware that we have $7 early bird tickets. We're extending them by a few more days to help. And the $75 all access pass allows you to come to see all the in-person screenings, all the parties, happy hours and everything, plus tune in online and see everything that is online. So it's really actually a great deal. So we hope everybody will tune in. And this recording is going to be on our YouTube channel. So if you feel like watching it later or sharing it with your friends, please feel free to do so. The more, the merrier, and so that people find out about your work and about the festival as well. Thank you all very much. If somebody wants to say a last-minute comment or something, that's fine. We're known to be going a little over each time. That's fine.
I'll just say quickly, the film that my director, Cheryl Allison, has just finished, it's called Honk, and it's about a goose that she befriended in Dallas during COVID. And the goose became literally her friend that she would visit every day. She rescued it. It was a goose that had been dumped in this pond, and she took it to a rehabilitation center and created a documentary about her friendship with this goose. And Honk has like 80,000 followers on Instagram.
Wow.
And this was something she did during COVID. It became her escape, and she rescued the goose. And unfortunately, 3 weeks ago, Honk passed away.
Oh.
And so Cheryl had to re-edit the film, which is premiering next week in Dallas, to include his passing, because she felt it was important to, one, it's a full circle story, but it's also children were falling in love with this goose, and she wanted, it's sort of a Charlotte's Web moment, right, to teach children that love is stronger than death, and so she felt she had to address it.
Wow, what an amazing story. What is the title of the film?
Honk.
Honk.
And she just started getting it into festivals. I don't know which ones yet. There are 2 in Texas, but I'm sure you'll be hearing about it because Honk became a global sensation during COVID.
My goodness, what a story. Amazing. Yes, Helen, you were trying to say something.
Yes. Yeah, in fact, I'm at the moment I'm more in the singing because I'm having 2 amateur choirs which I'm conducting, and they love to sing Bella Ciao. This is what I wanted to say to Giulia. And the other thing is that my next project in film is actually a project which I have started already, a documentary about my father's life. It's called Homeport. And I have shooted already a part of it, but it's frozen for several years now still because of finance and because of time. And it's a story about a simple man influenced by global conflicts like the Armenian genocide, which happened in the Ottoman Empire, and also the World War I and II, Israel-Palestine conflict, and civil war in Lebanon. And my father, lives now still in a Bavarian small town, and completely integrated in German life. But yeah, he had a very interesting life.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I was grabbing some years ago. I was finding out several things, that he has changed his name, and yes, and he's another person than he has been before. Yeah.
Wow, amazing, because there are so many parallels between the films that we are showing on the last program I did. There's a film which is called My Name Is. It's one of the short films that we are screening in person, and it's about people who have had to change their names, either because of cultural pressures or because it was a difficult to pronounce name or whatever reason. And it's very interesting to hear that. And also what we are seeing here is like a lot of the films are having to do with identity issues. Like Andrew is touching upon that. Mark is touching upon that from a different angle. And Helen, it's like, and also even the urbanization and non-urbanization is identity, and the women, everything is identity. Who are we, and what are our stories, and how our stories define who we are, and based on that, how we are judged in society. And it's like sad stories come up with aggressions that might even cost people their lives, and it's really sad to hear that. But by talking about it, by making these stories known to a larger public and educating people, it's very, very important. Not that preaching way, but entertaining them while informing them of certain things is very important, because when we know about different people, we are less inclined to be prejudiced and discriminatory against them. So that's very, very important. Any more comments?
Just want to say thank you for giving filmmakers like ourselves a platform to do exactly what you just said, to create opportunities for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the best to you all, and I can't wait to see your films, or again, I should say, not that I'm seeing them for the first time. And the audience, somebody put me a chat, let me see. Okay. I'm going to end the live broadcast, but we can continue to chat for a few moments. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you.